about today, man? What are you feeling? What excites you?
Well, it was funny as we were kind of putting the show together and we were kind of going back and forth. Uh, at the beginning, I was struggling with, what can we talk about, or what can we think about that, or what kind of discourse can we have that's kind of relevant to what's going on. And as I was kind of mulling things over, kind of thinking about it, all of a sudden this idea popped into my head of being ready to be ready. And all
What
of a
does that
sudden,
mean? How do you define that in your space?
exactly. Okay. So, and by the way, this is applicable kind of across the board. So well, we can maybe get into more general application in a little bit, but as we're unpacking this, the idea of being ready to be ready is simply being in sort of a mental state that then promotes you being proactively taking other actions so that when an opportunity presents itself, you can capitalize on it. That's the
Okay.
idea of being ready to be ready, right? So the idea is most people will try to wait kind of, I mean, hell, bringing it back to the taxes, right? Most people will wait until something absolutely has to get done before
Hmm.
you take any type of action, right? But if you're ready to be ready, you're more in line of, I know there's an opportunity coming my way. You kind of already expect it. You kind of already know that something is heading your way. That's the mind state that you're operating from. And so what you want to try to do is coordinate your activities to be in congruence with that. So the idea, and it goes beyond just like positive energy, it goes beyond just like simply like positive thinking. It's more along the lines of, for example, with us with this podcast, like I didn't really know this opportunity was going to come up. Like the
Hmm.
reality was you and I were having a conversation about something totally different. We were talking about your business, you expanding out into your own, becoming an entrepreneur, doing your own thing.
Hmm.
And from that sprung up this kind of crazy idea of like, hey man, you ever thought about doing a podcast? Oh, as a matter of fact, I have. I'm thinking about doing my own thing. Oh, well, have you ever thought about maybe doing a show together? Well,
Hmm.
oh shit. Well, no, I hadn't, but maybe that's something we can explore, and being open to that, right? So when the opportunity presents itself, then you start to figure out how to get it done. It kind of ties into what we talked about. I think it was what episode 1, start where you are
Yeah.
with what you got. So the idea is you want to be in a position where you can really capitalize on what's happening. I found a quote too here. Let me read it to you. It says, it's better to be prepared for an opportunity and not have one than to have an opportunity and not be prepared. And that was said by Whitney M. Young. And so I think this ready to be ready idea falls in line with that quote. The idea is you want to put yourself in a position where should something come down the road that you can capitalize on, you can
Yeah.
take that opportunity, as opposed to being like, oh, damn, well, hopefully I'm ready the next time. And so that could be whether that's like writing that email out to somebody to see if potentially there's a business opportunity there. That could be, doing what's necessary to get yourself in shape. For example, getting that pair of shoes, or getting the shorts, or signing up for the class, or because you never know what things may come of it. You go to the class, you meet somebody, that person transforms your life, right? All of a sudden you're like, wow, this trainer is amazing. This trainer's really given me information that I'm vibing with. And not
Hmm.
only am I vibing with it, I'm actually taking action on it now. They're saying do this, that, and the other. I'm doing it. I'm seeing the results. Boom. But if you weren't in that position to be like, oh, should I take the class or not? Oh, I don't want to take it. I'm not ready for it. Then all of a sudden, everything that comes from that goes away. Does that make sense? Kind of what I'm explaining?
Yeah, I think of it like when you said be ready to be ready, I was thinking like this is how you would jump on a train. Like if there was a train going down the track and you wanted to be on that train for whatever reason, you're gonna have to run alongside that train for a while. It's not like you can just go, okay, this train's going 70 miles an hour. I'm just gonna stick my arm out and grab onto it.
Right.
So it's kind of one of those things. But I feel like in today's uncertain times where like everything is unpredictable and timelines are like there's like a little subplot going on right now of like just complete
Uncertain.
unpredictable
Yeah.
situations that it's much harder to do this because like I was just talking to my buddy in the restaurant business and he was like, so I recommended to one of my district managers that we go out and take a proactive solution and put plexiglass all over the restaurant so that when people come in, they feel safe and there's barriers and all that.
Right. Mhm.
And the district manager was like, no, I'm not going to do that. And this was before the governor shut everything down. So they would have spent, $3,000 per store putting up plexiglass walls everywhere. And then their in-store program would have got shut down and they would have basically spent, however many 12 stores times $3,000 per store. So it's almost like that analysis paralysis is working in people's favor right now because making a decision based on what's going on today is often the wrong decision, because then tomorrow we get the rug pulled out and it changes the whole game. So how do you kind of get over that? How do you navigate around that in the present day?
That's an excellent question. So, for example, what I would think about would be, the reality is COVID's not going anywhere. So
That damn COVID, that
damn
pesky
COVID's
COVID.
not going anywhere. So the reality is, at some point I want to open up my restaurant, and at some point I want patrons. So even if we're and the reality is, my estimation is we're going to be open, close, open, close. This is unless everybody gets on the same page as to how we're going to tackle this, and that's a topic for another day, because we as a community as a whole, we're kind of disjointed in that. The idea being that you take the steps necessary. So for example, something he could do is figure out his cost. Like, you don't necessarily have to take the full steps to actually effectively create the barriers and put them up, but you could price it out. Exactly. Yeah. But you could price them out, and then you can see which one's more competitive. And then you can, I talked to Joe, I talked to John, I talked to Bobby. Out of the three, I like Bobby the best, but he's the most expensive. Joe seems to be the most reasonable. I think I'm going to go with Joe.
Yeah, that's a great point. That's something I'm not really good at. Like, there's 10 projects I want to do around the house. What I should be doing in my own time is just getting bids for those projects and just keeping them in the holster. Like, hey,
exactly.
if I happen to come up on this money for this project and it's the next one on the list, I want to know about what I'm spending. I want to know who the most, the best vendor was that I came in contact with. Like, I think that's great advice, because I'm terrible at that. Like, I'm going to be like, oh my God, I want to do this. I want to install a new air conditioner, and now I got to start from zero to try to get this thing put in, and it's June and it's about to be 100 degrees. Like, that would be me. So that'd be good advice for somebody like me who would wait.
And not just that. So on top of that, if all of a sudden you wait to the last minute, now you may lose valuable time as you implement whatever thing is now allowable to do, right? So hey, we opened everything back up. People are allowed to go back into the restaurants and our restaurant's going to take a little bit longer as we meet whatever. That'd be like saying, I don't want to know what the guidelines will be when we open up, because I don't know we're going to open up. So I'm just going to wait. Once we do know that we're opening up, then I'll look at the guidelines.
A lot of businesses are playing it that way right now.
But it's dangerous.
It's like, we're just going to curl up in a ball and wait for somebody to tap us to say it's over. And I don't even want to say that's a bad strategy anymore, because I don't even know. Like, 2 months ago, I'd have said that's a terrible strategy. I think I've said it on the show, but I don't know anymore, man. I mean, I can't fault people for doing that.
No, not at all. So the idea is, there's a lot of, so for example, before you even spend $1, there's a lot of legwork. You have to make the phone calls, find out who the people are.
I mean, if you're smart, some people just go one bid, boom, pull the trigger. They don't know what they got. If I'm the bidder and I sense that you're not bidding against me, then I'm going to make some not great decisions potentially based on that, depending on your morality and your business practices. But you gotta bid some stuff out. I mean, I would encourage anybody to look at, if you're going to look at Apple Music, look at Spotify and look at
exactly. Amazon. Well, totally,
right? Don't ever just go straight to the first thing. Do some research. You got the time.
And that goes
to the fast.
Right, exactly. And that goes to the idea of being ready to be ready, right? The idea would be, if they give the order for us to open back up, I'm moving. I'm ready to go. I know I'm calling Joe. I'm setting up my appointment. I'm doing everything. Now, I get what you're saying, because of, what's funny? In some of the personal development courses that I've taken, they say that human beings fall into a variety of categories as to kind of what they're looking for from things. And certainty is one of those things that human beings really crave, a great majority of them. There are some that don't. There's some that like spontaneity and excitement and things like that. But for the most part, a large majority of people want to feel secure that the decision that they're making is, quote unquote, the right one. And
certainly in their homes and their jobs and their long-term investments.
But the reality is, I mean, would you say that there's a right way to do things? I think it's just a way. It's just a way. There's no like right and wrong. Like, for example, us doing this. Is there a right way to do this show? Like, we're kind of putting it together as we go along and seeing, like, what I mean?
We're definitely not doing it if there is one.
Exactly. So, but you know what I mean? It's not one of those things where I don't think that prevents you from taking those necessary steps. So, with example, bringing it back to our show, one of the things that I thought about, which is why I proposed it to you when we started chatting, was, dude, I found this program, Zoom, that I think would be a great vehicle if we did decide to go through this and follow through and do the show. I think the Zoom program could be at least an initial way for us to get it off the ground.
Right. It's not the way we would have drawn it up, COVID notwithstanding and
right, exactly.
other things notwithstanding.
Maybe
But
we're in the same so for example, maybe if there's no COVID, maybe we're in a studio together, right? Or maybe we're doing like a
yeah.
single camera shot, like a traditional show
But
kind of
that
thing.
might
Or
come with additional costs and headaches and rent and God knows what else. So I mean,
exactly,
this might be the
exactly.
way we, with or
Right.
without a pandemic.
Right. And so and the idea being like capitalizing on what you have available and utilizing that to further your goal. Let me give you another example of being ready to be ready. In my business, one of the key things I tell people to do before they ever start looking at homes. Now, this is when I'm representing you as we can talk about sellers, but let's focus primarily on buyers. When
Right.
you're a buyer, one of the key things that I tell people to do before you even start looking at homes, because the internet has really opened up Pandora's box of people can just sit at home and kind of look at, realtor.com and Redfin and Zillow, Trulia,
They
all
could
these
be like their own little mini realtor before they ever
before
even
they
reach
even
out.
exactly.
Yeah.
And so you start looking at these homes, you start to get excited. Pre-COVID, you could even go to open houses on your own and check things out and look at
Sure.
things. And so all of a sudden you start to get excited, you see something that you really like, and now you have to work your way backwards to find out if you actually can afford to purchase that home, right? Or that space. And
Right.
so the
Or what
idea,
your budget is even,
or
right?
even exactly, totally
Because
right.
a total buying price is a component of what you can afford monthly or annually. So if you don't even know where you come in or what some lender will grant you, then how do you even know what size house, what neighborhood, what you can afford?
That's exactly right. Exactly right. No, I tell people the pre-approval or pre-qualification process is going to give us the boundaries that we work with, right? It's going to
Mm-hmm.
give us our low end and our high end, and
Mm-hmm.
that low end and high end now we can fill in the blanks of these are the types of properties that we can conceivably look at and help you purchase. And so whether it's a pre-approval or pre-qualification, at the end of the day, they're both a similar process. One's a little more thorough than the other, but the idea is you've taken the steps to be ready should something that you like be available and be ready to jump on it. Because with real estate, one of the hardest things that I had to sort of wrap my head around was real estate waits for nobody. It's not like any other type of consumer good. You know that if you want to buy a television, you can go to Best Buy or you can go to Sears, you can go to Walmart, and you can kind of price comparison shop. And the Samsung model 123 at Walmart might be a little bit of a variance in price to Best Buy, but at the end of the day, you can buy the same thing for relatively the same price.
Yeah.
With real estate, it's not like that. And likewise, you know that Walmart's open from, I don't know, what, 7 in the morning to 12 at night. And Best Buy's open from 10 a.m. to, I don't know, 7 or 8 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
Real estate, this thing could sell whenever. It could sell on a Monday, it could sell on a Friday, it could sell in the afternoon, it could sell in the middle of the night. Real estate doesn't really sleep. And so wrapping your head around that, I've written offers at 9, 10 o'clock at night. I've sat there and typed up an offer because my client really liked the home. And we knew that if we didn't get something in that day at that time, we weren't going to get it.
Time kills all deals. I love that.
And
I love
so,
that thought process. Like
and
time kills all deals.
and
Move.
the reality is, if you don't, if I can't, if you're the listing agent, I'm like, Joe, my clients love the home, man. It's perfect. It faces the right direction. It's got the right size yard. They love the amenities. This thing is awesome. We want this home. And then you're like, sure, John, go ahead and send me an offer. And I'm like, ooh, caveat. We just started the process. And so we haven't actually sat down with a mortgage lender or a broker and figured out how much they can qualify for. And so immediately I'm out of, that's it. I'm done. I'm shot. I'm dead. There's no,
How much of that, from what you just mentioned, how much of a good match when you're selling a home or when you're the listing agent, what does it matter if they're a good family or a good match? Like what percentage does that play into the deal?
Well, what do you mean?
Okay, what you just said, they're a great family. They love the house. They love how the feng shui is perfect for them.
Yeah.
They got 2 kids and it's got 2 spare bedrooms, whatever. But like, if you're a seller, you're just trying to maximize the amount of money that you walk away with. Who do you care if it goes to 2 nice kids and a dog,
That's so funny that you asked that, because it really, I mean, yes, there are some people that it works like that, but there are legitimately, and I can talk to this because it's happened, there are sellers that really have an affinity to their home, especially if they've been,
they want to curate the next journey.
well, it's not necessarily that they want to curate it, but think about it. If you spend 10, 15, 20 years in a place, there you inevitably grow feelings to it, even though it's an inanimate object, right? It's a structure made of sticks and drywall and glue and whatever. At the end of the day, you do grow attached to it. And so you want to hand it off to somebody that's going to appreciate it, care for it, look after it like you did. There is the idea of pride of ownership is real. That's why properties look different when an owner takes care of them versus a renter, because
Mhm.
inherently the renter, they have no skin in the game. It's just a rental. They know that they're there for a certain period of time and that's it. When you're an owner, you're like, this is mine. This is now all on me. This is my responsibility. And so oftentimes that's reflected in the care and the attention that you pay to the property. And
Mhm.
so when you've been in that home for 10, 15, 20, 30 years, I'm telling you, I've had it where where the seller has pulled me aside and said, look, John, this is especially at the listing appointment when we're talking about kind of what we're looking for and the
Mhm.
overall goal that we're trying to achieve. They're like, at the end of the day, we want this home to go to a nice family, in a sense of like, we want somebody who's going to take care of the home, somebody who's going to really appreciate everything that we did for it. Like the hardwood floors weren't any kind of hardwood floors. We had the hardwood floors brought in from XYZ. And the cabinetry isn't like any other cabinetry. We actually had our carpenter that we've known for years. Like there's people that legitimately think like this. Now, is the
Yeah.
flip side available too? Of course. There are people who are like, it's a house.
Just
I just want top,
maximize
yeah,
it.
maximize
Yeah.
my dollars. That's all I care about. But there are people who legitimately are like, man, I'm looking for somebody who's going to carry on this legacy.
So it's a healthy percentage. It's
Yes. Oh, and here's another one, by the way. And I hate to interrupt, but there is this other component. There are people who are looking for good neighbors for their neighbors.
That's
Like
very kind. But
I've
like,
I've I've
because I
lived
think
next
I'd
to,
be more in the maximize my money camp than the I don't really care
and
who.
that's
Like, it's
fair.
not my problem
That's
who
totally fair.
moves in
But for
here.
example, if you know that you're living and all of a sudden you've been in this neighborhood for years, your kids grew up here, you knew the neighbors, especially these are like tight knit neighborhoods where people like
Yeah. Like
legitimately
you
know
might
each
come
other.
back and visit the rest of the people on
Correct,
the
because this is
street.
simply because you're leaving doesn't mean you're terminating those relationships with
Right.
the
Right.
folks. It just
That's
means that
fair.
you're moving on, right? And there are people who legitimately want to have, you know, something along the lines of what was there before.
Mhm.
You don't all of a sudden want to bring something or somebody in that completely changes the complexion of the
Yeah.
neighborhood as far as you know the attention. Like if your lawn was always pristine and you were always the pride of the neighborhood because you always had those roses, and your neighbors got used to that, and that was a sense of pride. Well, it'd be a shame if all of a sudden the new neighbor comes in and just cements everything. Like
I,
cement as far as the eye can see. I just want cement. I want
Rock
low maintenance.
lawn ready. I
Exactly,
think
right?
about that every Christmas because our across the street neighbor just we call them the Griswolds because they just go nuts with the decorations. And I'm
Yeah,
like, if they ever sell the house, the expectation level for that, for the Christmas decorations is off the
it's
charts.
off the charts right
Nobody
through.
will ever like they better sell the house with all the shit that goes on it for Christmas and Halloween. They do everything. Easter. I mean, they're Clark W. Griswold for every single holiday. It's great.